So we're going to get started. Listening skills. So let me point something out to you. Right? We got two words up here. Right? We got listening and we got... What does skills mean? Can someone tell me what that word means? Is a skill an experience? Someone said something you learn? It's an ability? It's developed. He gets where's the cookies? He gets one. Yeah, there you go. You get the rest of the cake. So here you go. Listening. Listening is a skill. Y'all with me? No. Got a bunch of people who are not listening. And I can't move on until we're all listening. What's the difference, everybody? What's the difference between listening and hearing? No, what's the difference between listening and hearing? Okay, so listening is understanding, or hearing is understanding, or what are you saying? Okay, and hearing is what? Getting noise?
Listening is what it means, not necessarily what they're saying.
Not what they mean, what they're saying. Listening is okay. So how about this? Okay? Hearing is short of something being broken, is something that just happens. You are hearing all the time. Unless the mechanism is broken, I'm talking about inside your ears, the nerves, the little bones, and all that. Hearing is a function of this system. If I'm in a group of Hispanic people, and I'm not just picking on Hispanic people, but if I'm in a group of Hispanics, I understand a little bit of Spanish, but for the most part, they lose me real quick. And then it just becomes, I'm just hearing, because I have no idea what they're saying. All right? Listening is, as was said over here, is comprehension of what's being said. Now, let's go back to skill. Skill is something that is learned. It's not a talent. Okay? Even talents can be developed. You can be born with a talent to play guitar. Just naturally. I just naturally play guitar. I learned it real easy. Started playing when I was 12 years old. I could just start, look at the chords and figure it out, and I just played. Now, it took years to continue playing and develop it to be more than just, okay? Skills are something that are completely learned. Remember I mentioned that foul game, golf? Right? I'm just joking. Not really. So, like golf, you can go to a driving range, right? I'm sure there's driving ranges around here. And you can buy a bucket of balls and they give you a club. It's called a driver, one with the big head on it, right? And you can put the balls down there and you can swing and like, maybe eventually you kind of figure out how to keep the ball kind of going straight instead of like flying over there and people are ducking and everything, okay? And you kind of develop this like, this swing that you're hitting the ball, okay? Now hold on. Here's the thing about skills. Who knows the old saying, practice makes... thank you very much, whoever said that. Because that's completely wrong. You perfect whatever you practice over and over and over, even if it's wrong. Perfect practice makes perfect. If I want to learn how to swing the club to hit the ball in the right way, chances are I'm going to have to hire a golf pro, a coach, someone who's going to teach me the mechanics of how to properly swing a golf club. Otherwise, I'm going to develop all kinds of wonky things, and I'm never going to know where that ball's going to go from one time to the next. Skill is something that you can learn, and it's something that you develop. Okay? Our brother here was telling me that he's a builder, and I'm sure that within his trade, there's skills that over the years he got better and better and better and better and better at doing it. But chances are he didn't just wake up one day with the skills to do it. So when we talk about listening, we're going to acknowledge that for the most part, most of us don't know how to listen. And we're going to be okay with that. Because now we're going to talk about how do we get better and what do we practice to be good at listening. Okay? Here we go. Listening skills. All relationships begin with listening. Can we say yes to that? Can you have a relationship without listening? No, we can't. In fact, everything in relationships hinges on listening. When I used to do the premarital counseling, we would spend at least 10 minutes of every single session. Now I'm going to tell you what a slave master I was, is that anyone that I was going to do the wedding ceremony for, they had a minimum of 4 to 6 months of premarital counseling, one session a week for 4 to 6 months. That was what I demanded if they wanted me to do the wedding ceremony. Because I said, if I do the wedding ceremony, I'm responsible to God for you. And you become my kids. And I'm going to make sure that you start off in a right way. So we practiced listening skills every single time. Why? Because everything in relationship hinges with listening. Because for all those marriage counseling sessions that I did that weren't premarital, that were marriages in crisis, 90% of the time, if you boiled it down, it was because they just didn't know how to talk to each other. And problems had ensued and gaps had formed, all because they just couldn't communicate. That's how important it is. All right. So we're going to look at some pictures here. Let me step out of the way, and I'm going to get some feedback from you. What are the biggest obstacles to listening? That's the question. What's the obstacle to listening in this picture?
Staying awake.
Alertness.
Yeah, staying awake, right? Can you listen while you sleep? Can I tell you that I've had people sit in this class and say, I do it all the time. And their wife is like trying to wake them up. Okay? I can say in the past I've had some elders, pastor, that told me they certainly could listen while they slept because they were constantly doing it in the front row. Okay? So what are the biggest obstacles to listening here? We got 1, 2, maybe 3. It looks like this guy's looking back at him. So why might they be sleeping?
They're bored.
They're bored. Maybe they didn't get some good sleep the night before. Maybe the person speaking is not doing a good job. Which brings me to this question. This isn't in your book. You might want to write it down. You don't have to. Who owns the responsibility of communication? The speaker or the listener? Or both? Okay? We're going to take a vote. Okay? Who owns the responsibility of communication? The speaker, the listener, or both? Let's do a vote. Hold on. All those who say the listener, raise their hand. Listeners. Okay. All those who say the speaker, raise their hand. Pretty close to about the same. All those who believe both, raise their hand. Wow. Most of you say both. So can I tell you that survey says, ching, ching. That was a joke. The speaker owns the responsibility of communication. The person speaking owns the responsibility to communicate their thoughts and their ideas. Now hang on, for those of you that don't agree, so here's the caveat to that. If I'm speaking to someone who doesn't care about what I'm saying, then it doesn't matter what I say because they don't care. When we're talking about someone who's interested in what you have to say, then the speaker owns the responsibility. Why is that? We're going to get more in depth, but I'm going to give you a little tidbit, okay? Because everybody hears differently. If I want to communicate something to you, now, I don't know if you picked it up, but in my sermon today, the main point was, you are what you think you are, right? If we could bring it down to the most basic thing, right? What you think of yourself, what you think about the most is what you become. Now, if you think about that sermon, I said it in multiple different ways over and over and over through that sermon. I was giving examples, I was telling stories, but really all of it was pointing to the same thing. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I understand that at any given time, in front of any given congregation of people, there is a plethora of people's experiences and backgrounds as to how they interpret what it is I'm saying. Some stories I can say and people totally don't get it because maybe they're cultural differences. Well, that's going to come up here in just a minute. We're going to talk about that. But if I'm going to communicate an idea, I just can't assume, brother, that you understand what I'm saying. And if it's really important, I'm probably going to have to express it a few different ways so that we make sure we have communication. Okay? And therefore, it lies on me. Okay. Biggest obstacles to listening. What's the biggest obstacle to listening here? What's going on? Maybe interruption, talking. Can you listen and talk at the same time? Again, there's people that tell me they do it all the time. But I'm going to tell you the bottom line is, if you're talking, you're not listening. Plain and simple. How about this one? Now, I'm going to ask a few of you, what's wrong with this picture?
They're like all together and not.
Okay, well, that's part of it. But I'm talking about a subtle detail that's wrong. No, y'all are looking the wrong way, thinking the wrong thing. Okay, look at. What is she holding? No. Come on, more than that.
An apple?
No. That's a phone, and that's a phone. Would three girls that I'm going to say are probably teenagers, one, be talking on that kind of phone? Because yeah, there you go. I've had people say, Pastor, come on, you got to update your picture. And every time I've just got such a kick out of it, I don't. The other thing is would three teenage girls be talking on the phone? No. What would they be doing?
Texting.
Come on now, get with it, y'all.
But they're all flip phones. It's going to be too hard just to stop.
Well, they couldn't text on those phones. But that's not the point. Okay? Kids of that age group are going to probably be sitting there texting.
Right.
Way more than talking on the phone. So, but the point is can you be listening to somebody talk to you while on the phone?
No.
So, I need to hold your phone for just a moment. Don't worry, I'm not going to try and break your passcode or anything like that. So let me tell you something. I'm going to give you one of my ultimate pet peeves as a pastor, as a human being. Sister, you and I are talking, and we're having a good conversation, and we're talking about life and everything. You're talking to me, and I go. Okay. Yeah, it happens all the time. And so what I'm telling you is yeah, absolutely. Not only is it she says, well, what if you're writing notes? Well, then you know what? You say, excuse me, but I'm going to take some notes down because what you're saying is important. Right. Nothing is more upsetting to somebody else than for them to be talking to you and for you to pick up your phone in any way. Because as soon as you do, what you have said to them is the person on this phone is more important than anything you have to say to me. And if we're going to be concerned about listening, we have to be very aware of the message that we send. Okay? So typically I will tell, don't feel bad. I sit in and I do expanded versions of this with pastors, and we're sitting in groups and we're talking, and I'll look over and there's a pastor sitting texting, and I want to walk over and go, don't you get it?
I was actually taking notes, so I hope you
No. This had nothing to do with any. She's feeling guilty over here. Okay? No. Sorry, but it had nothing to do with anything. I didn't even see you doing that. You just happened to be looking at me here close, so I came over to use you as an example. Wow. Does that your sin will find you out or something? I don't know. So back to the picture. The biggest obstacle is you can't be in a conversation and be on the phone at the same time. It's one or the other. Either you tell the person, please excuse me, I've been expecting this call 1 second. Okay? I don't think there's something wrong if you give them the respect to like, okay, just give me 1 second. Someone needs an answer from me on something. I'll be right with you. Hold on. Okay? But you don't just like, huh? Yeah, okay. Yeah, right, I got you. Yeah, whatever. Or wait a minute, my bids on eBay are coming up. Hold on a second. Okay. How about this? Multitasking. Who here is a good multitasker? So we have people that raise their hand and say they're good multitaskers. So first off, let me tell you that multitasking as we typically understand it doesn't exist. You cannot do multiple things at once. We get real good at shifting from one thing to another, but as I said earlier in the sermon, our brain can only hold one thing at a time. We can only do one thing at a time. We get good at shifting. And there are certainly, I watch my wife. My wife is an executive secretary, and she works for the conference now in the education department. And I mean, she can like do multiple things, but she'll even acknowledge, you know, if I'm typing something, my brain is typing, and I'm going to miss things that somebody said at the same time. I can't listen and type at the same time. Okay, so we cannot multitask. We cannot believe that we can do multiple things. Either we're listening or we're doing something. Okay? All right. Biggest obstacle to listening. What does this face say to you? There you go. Thank you. If you didn't hear her, what she said is, what am I going to say next? How am I going to refute everything that this fool is saying? Now here's the sad thing. I've sat across from that face at too many church board meetings. Where I'm sitting there, I'm pouring my heart out, and that person's sitting across from me, and I know they're just loading up their gun, getting ready to give it to me the second I shut my mouth. So here's the sad truth about this. This one fits far too many people. Not just the face, but the idea behind it. Because it's a very common thing for people to be thinking about what they're going to say before someone is finished with what they've said. I've got to defend myself. I've got to refute what they're saying. And as soon as you get the gist of what it is they're saying, your brain is going, you've shut them off, and you're figuring out how you're going to come back at them and win the battle. Okay? You can't listen and think about what you're going to say at the same time. You can't. And it's something that's also common for all of us. Okay. Now, let's talk about what we've titled something called Deceptive Listening. Let's read this and then we're going to unpack it. This is in your book, so you'll be able to go back to this. We think we are hearing and understanding, but our grasp of the other person's real story is incomplete and marred with our assumptions, bias, and divided attentions. That's a mouthful. So let me unpack that for you, and you're going to like, whoa, all right. We think we're hearing and understanding. Remember I mentioned that where we come from, our culture, our understanding, the metaphors and the things the stories that we tell so often are based on our history, what we've come from. Our grasp of the other person's real story. Sister, I don't know anything about you. I'm not just picking on you. You're just a good target. You just sat in a good place. And I've been told that the color blue is a color that has a tendency to cause people to pick you more often. Did you know that? So you probably want to not wear blue next time. So I don't know you. I don't know anything about your background or your heritage or where you come from or how you grew up or anything. And if we're having a conversation and I don't know those things, that's a big gap that's left unknown for me to really be able to communicate with you. I can just assume that you're understanding me, but that's a bad thing to do. All right? And why? Because I don't know your real story. I don't know what your background is. I don't know what things might upset you or might not. What might be triggers. You know, you might have gone through some horrendous things that I could say something that means nothing and to me, but yet to you, it could be a big thing. So, an early example, right? So if you're pastoring in Florida, so I had been pastoring in Colorado. Let me tell you, I was in the mountains of Colorado. And can I tell you something about where I pastored? There just is no people of color up there. All right? It's just the areas where we lived, where we were, the church that I pastored. I mean, this is like white folk. Okay? I grew up in Florida, so I'm used to people of color and persuasions. But I am at one of my earlier churches, and I'm preaching a sermon, and I'm talking about someone doing something that to me made no sense, and I said this. Now some of you might right away go, oh my God, you didn't. But I said, it made no sense. No, this is me repeating up there, okay. It made no sense to me, and I just thought to myself, what the heck is this guy doing? I'm telling you, after the service was over, I had this gentleman come over to me, upset that I had used a 4-letter word at the platform. And I'm thinking, what? Were you in the same place I was? What are you talking about? And he told me that to him, heck was synonymous with a curse word in his culture and in his background. And I was stunned. And I had to, I'm telling you, the next week I apologized to the church. Because there's times that we don't even realize, without knowing someone's story or background, that we can say something that can be offensive. And most people, except for this one gentleman, probably the whole church would have just let me slide and not ever said anything. But this one guy, he made it his life's mission to make sure that any time I ever said anything that was wrong, Pastor, he let me know in no uncertain terms that I was wrong. Okay? The real story, where people come from, what their background is, what kind of life did they grow up with? How did their parents treat them? Can I just assume that they understand what I'm talking about? Probably not. I can't. Not in the world that we live in now. It's not only that I don't have a grasp of their story, but it's incomplete. But even more, it's marred with my assumptions, my biases, and then my divided attention. So what are my assumptions and my biases? Well, I grow up in a family that my heritage, though I'm Jewish on both sides, all the way back, right? Not like my great-great-grandfather was Jewish, no, I'm talking about from my mom and dad all the way back, everyone's Jewish as far as we know. But on one side, it's Italian, Jews from Sicily. And on the other side, it's Jews from the Austrian-Hungarian border, Germany. Okay? That German side is pretty strong. And here's the example. I grew up with this being drilled into me that if someone tells me that a meeting is at 7:30, then by God, I'm there at 10 minutes before 7:30. Because it is an absolute disrespect to show up late to a meeting. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. I am the pastor at Plantation. Okay, this was my last church. I call a board meeting, my first board meeting. This is a mixture of Caucasians, Hispanics, Jamaicans, Haitians, elders. Okay, this is the elders board. I call the meeting for 7 o'clock. I'm telling you at like 10 to 7, quarter to 7, because I'm not going to be late to a meeting. I'm there with the office open, waiting. And I'm waiting. And 7 o'clock rolls by, and there's nobody there. And I'm looking at the clock, and I'm looking at my watch, and I'm thinking, Lord have mercy. Did I tell them 7:30? Did I make a mistake or whatever? Sometimes around 7:10, 7:15, the head elder showed up. Wow. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Did I misunderstand? Because I thought I emailed everyone. I said 7 o'clock. He said, you did. Wow. He said, Pastor, this is the first time I ever heard soon come. The Jamaicans know soon come? You know, if you're Caucasian or whatever, you may not know soon come. But it's like, I learned about soon come. It's like, Pastor, like, relax. Okay? It's like, when we show up, we're going to get there. We're going to be there. It's like, don't get all twisted up here. It's island time, but it's Hispanic time too. Because, no, I'm not making fun, but I learned that there are cultures that you tell them what time. You say 7 o'clock, guess what? That's what time they leave their house. But I'm not making a joke. I mean, that's just a cultural thing. Do y'all feel me? Okay, so now I already talked, I have to say something about the Brazilians because, because the Jamaicans soon come and I did a wedding at Brazilian temple down south. First Brazilian wedding. Now I'd done a Brazilian funeral too, but first Brazilian wedding. And they told me this was going to be a lot of people, a big wedding. The wedding started at 6 o'clock. I had the invitation, 6 o'clock. Well, I showed up at like 5:20 because I'm the pastor officiating over the wedding. I'm going to be there real early so we have time to make sure everything's set and go over whatever we're going to go over. And I'm sitting in my car and it's 5:45 and there's nobody there. I even got out and checked the door. I even went back and checked the invitation and walked around and looked at the address because I thought I was in the wrong place. At 6 o'clock, one lonely gentleman shows up, who, by the way, spoke no English, only Portuguese. So I was trying to ask him, is this the place for the church? And he didn't, for the wedding, and he had no idea what I was saying. And he opened the door. And I got to him that he was the janitor, just opening the door. But the invitation said 6 o'clock. You know what time the actual ceremony started at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Wow. And they're saying, yeah. 8 o'clock. We finish and we've greeted people and I'm walking out the door and it's like 9:45 and I'm telling you there are people who had just parked and were just walking up to the wedding at like 9:45. Okay, enough about this. The whole point is assumptions, biases. What we think may not be what they think. And my understanding of in communication with you, I have to understand that there may be these issues. And we live in a multicultural world that if we don't take that for account and we take it for granted, there's a good chance we could end up being upset with each other or take something wrong and assume that it was disrespect. My feeling about those pastors or those elders showing up is like, okay, this is the first elders meeting I've called, and they're just drawing the line in the sand and saying, we don't care what you say. That's the things that were going through my head, which is not good, because I was really upset, until the one elder explained to me, Pastor, you got Haitians, Jamaicans, you got Hispanics here, and you got to understand what soon come means. Okay, you just got to I can't even tell you exactly what he said because it was a little rude, but it was basically like loosen up. Okay, all right. The only effective way to overcome deceptive listening is to invoke empathic listening skills. What does it mean to be empathic? What is empathy? Put yourself in another person's place, okay? What else? Anything else? That's a good general. We have to unpack that a little bit better. Because can we always put ourselves in the other person's place? No, we can't. A more common thing is, walk a mile in another person's moccasins, in their shoes, whatever, feel the pain their feet feel, right? But here's the thing. When we're talking about empathic listening, it's can we connect with the emotion that they're expressing in the same way that they're expressing it? Okay? Can I listen to you and can I feel the emotion of what you're saying, and can I reflect it back to you in a way that I'm connecting with you? So in other words, if I'm sitting with someone who's suffering the loss of a loved one and I'm trying to keep from laughing, and maybe I laugh because when I get nervous, I laugh. Now, I don't, but I know of someone that does that. I know of someone that when someone gets hurt, the first thing they do is break out laughing. And they can't help it. And it's terrible, but the more hurt someone is, the more they laugh. And it's this nervous reaction to someone getting hurt. And they can't help it, but that's what they do. So when we're talking about empathic listening skills, it's the idea that we are seeking to connect with that person we're talking with on an emotional level that's equal to the emotion that they're giving us. Does that make sense? Okay? And we have to be careful that we're not getting carried away too far, too sad, too happy. Because if someone starts telling us a little story that they've got a little bit of smile and we're like, whoa! And they're going to be thinking, you out of your mind? Or someone's telling us about, I had a kind of a sad day, my mouse passed away today, and it's like, okay, it was your mouse, I'm sorry, But if I started crying like, oh my God, your mouse died, no! Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Not like, okay. Was that graphic enough for y'all to get the picture? I'm trying to paint a picture here for you. Okay. Empathic listening. Empathic listening, also called active listening. Have any of you ever heard of active listening? Now, you probably, if in some classes in college courses, depending on what studies you've done, they do teach active listening. Or it's also called reflective listening. It's a way of listening and responding to another person to show them that you identify with their feelings. Its focus is to emotionally put yourself in the place of another. But it's not to go so deep to say, I really am feeling what you're feeling, because that could be completely disingenuous. For instance, one of the things about pastoring is that you do funerals. I have had, sadly, in all my years, 3 times I've had to do funeral for suicides, 3 of them. And can I tell you, there's no way you can sit next to a mother or a father or someone who's lost someone through suicide and even begin to say, I know what you're feeling. Because even though we've probably all had losses in our life and stuff, and even if you have lost someone that way, that's kind of pain that's, you just can't, all you can do is sit next to them and say, I can't even imagine what you're feeling, but I'm here for you. That's the best we can do. All right. So let's talk about 3 levels of listening. This is a model that comes from a book called Coactive Coaching. It's one of the books that we use in our curriculum with the pastors. It is a really good book. If you're interested in learning more about these skills, I would recommend that as one of them. You can get that on Amazon for really cheap as like a used version. It's called Coactive Coaching. Coactive Coaching. Okay, so let's talk about level 1. Level 1, our attention is on ourselves. The best example of level 1 is all of you sitting here are at level 1 for the most part. Because you're listening to what I'm saying and you're processing it and applying it to yourself. Which is fine, because that's what level 1 is. It's all about me. The spotlight is on me, my thoughts, my judgment, my feelings, for my benefit. The purpose of information gathering at level 1 is to meet your needs, to meet my needs. If I am at the doctor and they're going to give me the results of a biopsy, you better bet you I'm at level 1 listening to every single thing about me. Okay? At level 1, there's only one question. What does this mean to me? So is level 1 bad? In the right situation, the right context, level 1 is exactly what you should be doing. Okay? So when it's appropriate. Do we use level 1 in conversation? Now that's the place where it becomes inappropriate. What is a conversation? Mutual give and take, right? So I once heard conversations, an exchange of ideas between two or more people. When we're talking back and forth, we're having conversation. Conversation is not one person standing up and lecturing. For the most part, this is not a conversation. I'm speaking, you're listening, you're at level 1. If you ask a question and I step in and we're dialoguing, it switches more to level 2 type listening, which we're going to go to right now. Level 2 focuses on the other person. When you're speaking, I'm listening. I'm trying to do it in such a way that I can really grasp what it is you're saying, what the intent is behind your words, because I want to understand you. That's why I'm listening to you. Why else would I listen? Right? There can be no other motive to listening than understanding. Not only are we listening to their words, but seeing their expressions, experiencing their emotions, and catching what their words don't say. Can someone tell me what we call that? Well, you kind of went down that road. Don't be afraid. There's a word, there's a term that we use for this type of non-verbal communication. What is non-verbal communication? Is it everything that happens that doesn't have anything to do with our mouth? Is that non-verbal communication? That's what most people say, and that is wrong. Okay? Because here's why I say that. There's multiple aspects to communication. Some people, when they talk and they just... Some people like me, because I'm part Italian, part German, if you tie my hands behind my back, I have a hard time speaking. Remember I said up there, I can't just stand still. You notice I'm walking around because that's kind of how I communicate. But do you have to see somebody to be able to communicate with them? Who said yes? Okay. Wrong. Can you communicate with someone effectively over the telephone? Yeah, you can. You can have an effective conversation over the phone. Okay? Now, if it's somebody you've never talked to before, it's way more difficult because you have not developed an understanding of their little idiosyncrasies and the way they say things and so on. So my example is like this. How I say things has more impact than what I say. How it comes out of my mouth, how loud it is, how I express it, has more impact than the words. Example, my wife can be sitting next to me and can start tickling me, which by the way I do not like. And she can start tickling me and I can go, no! What does that say? Yeah, it's stop, but it's like, it's like playful. It's like, no, stop. If I go, stop it, or no, it's like my dog's getting ready to pee on the floor, and I'm saying, no! Same word, totally different meaning. Okay? How we say it has probably more impact than what we say. My wife will also say to me, what you're saying does not equal what your face is showing. Okay? Right? I have this issue with my eyebrows. I can get intense. And, my wife told me I should have had a career in the movies and played like a mafia guy. She said, you would have been great for that. Because I can get intense. And I can look intense. But what I'm looking like may not have anything to do with what I'm really thinking. And many times I have to say to my wife, look, my face may be saying something, but that's not what I mean. I'm not upset. It's cool. Okay? So, we're not just listening to the words, but we're gathering information from what we see and what we hear. Now, I probably in the past would have argued way more for your point, and that's visual. But for the last 5-6 years, I have been coaching people primarily over the telephone. And I have developed my skills to be able to listen to how people say things a lot more than what they say many times, because that gives me way more information about what they really mean. You can pick up when someone changes the pace of how they're talking, if they're talking faster or slower, or their pitch goes up or down. There's all kinds of things that are connected to effectively listening. It's not just the words that are coming out of my mouth. Okay? You with me, everybody? Okay. By the way, it's 10 to 4. We're not going to make 4 o'clock. We're probably going to be between 5 and 10 after. I'm just letting you know now. Sorry. I told one too many stories today. Okay, we are so focused on the person that the conversation almost becomes spontaneous. Have any of you ever experienced that with somebody? Yeah. Yeah, that you've been around that person for so long that you not just complete the sentences, but you know what they're going to say. You know what's next. Okay? And that is a nice thing. But that comes from time, and that comes from developing that relationship through listening and really listening to each other. Okay, finally, what the experts call global listening. Now, this is like a unicorn. You know why I use the term unicorn? It's like elusive. It's like, I don't know if it exists, and it's hard to find. Okay, now here's the reason why. The first part of this we'll get. Listening to everything you can observe with your senses, what you see, hear, smell, and feel. Tactile, what you touch, as well as the emotional. Let me ask you a question at this point. Which of our senses has the deepest connection to memory? Okay? Some of you say smell. How about sight? Anyone believe what you see? How about taste? Taste? Sound, what you hear? Okay. What you feel? Yeah. So the correct answer is definitely smell. Your sense of smell has the deepest connection to memories. It ingrains itself deepest in memories. Just think about how you can go somewhere. I know, like for myself, if I'm somewhere and I smell like garlic, especially garlic cooking, it just takes me back to my grandma's house. Like, I'm just right there, right? There's been studies done with people that have gone through trauma and had smelled something strong, a perfume or something like that, connected or in relation to that, and that smell can re-trigger the emotions and the feelings of that trauma. All right? So here's where I'm going to with this. And maybe you'll disagree with me, I don't know, but this is what's accepted, at least at this point. We don't forget anything, ever. Okay? Our brain, unless it's damaged, does not forget. We lose the capacity to access memory over time, or we lose the ability to implant connections to memory as we get older, but memories never go away. And there's been lots of scientific studies done on that, dealing with Alzheimer's patients and dementia patients who, as they revert deeper into the dementia or the Alzheimer's, seem to draw on memories that are deep, 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 old memories of childhood, of things that have been gone for 60 years. But that was the connections that still survived. And those become real. And I tell you that because if we are, as 360, the bottom line to this is that you are listening and you are in the moment, fully present, 100%, not distracted. I also fondly call this super spy listening. It's like, I don't know if any of you know who Jason Bourne is. You don't have to acknowledge it. I know we shouldn't know who Jason Bourne is. But, it's like this super spy can walk into a diner and walk through and sit down and know where every person is, every knife on every table, every exit to every door. It's just like he sees it. He's so in the moment that he remembers and connects to everything. So the greatest place we can be when it comes to fully engaged and fully listening is this 360, where we are absolutely 100% fully present in the moment. Not distracted by anything, nothing. And so everything in that conversation that I'm having with you, everything that's going on, every smell, everything that's happening is being connected to that conversation. So my wife has this interesting ability, and maybe some of you do, but she has really a photographic memory. I mean, for real, a photographic memory. She can look at, and it works on like papers and numbers and things like this. Not like she can sit with you and have a conversation and like have, but it's like static things. Like she remembers every account number for all of our credit cards and bank numbers, and it's just like she can just like this credit card, and you ask her, how do you? She says, because I see the credit card in my brain. I see a picture of it. She can do it with pages of stuff. It's crazy. She just like somehow can visualize that page, and that's how her memory works. Doesn't mean that like, I don't know. But I only bring that up because our brain has an amazing capacity. And this is where, there's people that train themselves to remember sequences of names and numbers and all kinds. We all have the capacity to do it. It's just we don't all know how to do it. Okay. All right. So last big discussion thing, and then the rest of the stuff's going to kind of be... All right, intuition. Okay, by a show of hands, is there such a thing as women's intuition? If you believe so, raise your hand. Some of you don't. I'm surprised. Because typically just about everyone raises their hand. Okay? Can other people besides women, in other words men, have a similar thing? Yes. Why when we think of women's intuition, why is it and what is it? First of all, why is it? Is the big question. Because if we understand why, we understand how for other things. So here's the why that I would explain to you, or at least my opinion of the why. First of all, can we acknowledge that men and women were created differently by God? We're wired differently. We connect differently because God created us to serve different functions. Regardless of what the contemporary world wants to say, that we're all equal and the same. Yeah, we're equal, but we're not the same. Women connect in a different way than men do. Women want connection, men want to fix it. Okay? Women want to have a conversation, men want to solve the problem. Now, that's not all the time, because there's exceptions to everything, but that's generality. Okay, we're wired that way. Women are created that way because they form bonds with their children that most men can't. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that we don't, in a different way, form a bond. But God created a woman so that little baby comes into her hand, and it's like, you touch my baby, I kill you. Okay? Men come to that later. That was interesting. Are we okay? I don't know. Oh. Okay, so we have a toilet problem. Distractions come from everywhere. You never know what to expect. So, let's go back to intuition. So women have this emotional connection in a way that men don't, which means women are more sensitive to subtle things that people do than men are. As a generality, not always. I can testify to this because my wife on many occasions has come to me, pat me on the shoulder, pointed to somebody in one of our churches and said, be careful of that person. And I'll think to myself, what are you talking about? Stop it, And you know what? She's always been right. She senses or she picks up on something that's off, that I didn't sense or I didn't feel or I didn't know. Now, the same thing can be true when we work in a place, when we do something. I coach. I typically can have anywhere from 3 to 5, minimum 3 to 5 sessions a day. Most of the time it's closer to 5. that I'm coaching, talking to people on the phone. And my ability to pick up on subtle things, changes, has grown to where I would say my intuition in the conversation has developed. I'm not talking about the Holy Spirit speaking to me. That's something totally different. That's something totally different. Okay? So, using intuition is a significant part of level 3. If somebody is a lawyer, or somebody is a doctor, or you deal with clients on the phone all the time, or face-to-face, guess what? You develop intuition that is connected to whatever it is you do. You start to hear certain things, the way people say them, because you've learned that those type of things mean these type of things. This my wife, whatever it is she's picking up in those people, something she's sensing that I'm not familiar with. But intuition does become a part of our listening skill as time goes on and as we develop. But we want to be careful that our intuition doesn't override what the person's saying. In other words, I'm not sitting in a conversation with you and my intuition is saying something and now I'm not listening to because my intuition has just figured everything out that you're going to say. I want to listen to everything that you're going to say. And as I'm processing what you're saying, my intuition may begin to help me understand it at a deeper level. Okay? What happened? Come on. Help! I didn't turn it off. I didn't do anything wrong. Did it change? Okay. Level 3 includes, all right, good. Includes the action, inaction, and interaction. What do we mean? The action is what's actually happening, what's being said. The inaction is the passive part of the conversation. I'm being passive because I'm listening to you. I'm not in an action place. And then the interaction is we're having conversation. We're interacting with each other. And these are 3 parts when we're in that level 3. There's action, there's inaction, and there's interaction. Okay. All right. Sometimes described as environmental listening, you notice the temperature, the energy, the light, dark, both literary figure. Jason Bourne, super spy. Okay? That's how I describe that. It didn't change. Oh, there we go. All right. It's getting tired. I don't know. Or did you just change it? Yeah, something's happening. I'll just go. Okay. Paraphrasing and reflecting back. Next. Listening and paraphrasing equals effective relationship. Next. The connection between the listening skills and paraphrasing is so strong that you can't have one without the other. One more, please. It's not just for the listener, but for the speaker. Let's go ahead and then we're going to unpack all of this. It helps them clarify their feelings, organize their thoughts and words so that they better understand what they are saying and what they actually believe. Okay, let's hold here for a second. What does it mean to paraphrase?
In other words.
In other words. Okay? There's multiple ways that we can paraphrase. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But in essence what it is I'm relaying back what I've heard from you. It could be exactly, it could be partially, but it's like, here's what I understood you to say, and I'm telling you back what I think it is. Now, if I'm telling you back what I thought you said, why would it help you clarify or organize your thoughts? What do you think?
Speakers know what they accomplished, what they delivered.
Okay, or you get a sense of, are they understanding me? If you've said something to me and I go, okay, so what I heard you say is la la la, and then you think to yourself, whoa, wait a minute, that wasn't anything close to what I just said. Now you didn't just say that to me, but you right away you're thinking, hold on, I didn't say that at all. Okay, wait, let me rephrase this because you didn't get it. Okay, it's going to help me clarify my thoughts. Now sometimes, if you're like me, I'm an oral processor. I talk things out, all right? And in the process of talking, I experience emotion. I get up, I get down. So if I'm having a conversation with my wife and I'm processing something and she's going, okay, so this is what you said. Is that really what you meant? I'm going to go through a process of feeling and thinking, because it's helping me to clarify by that, by paraphrasing, coming back to me. This is in essence what active listening is. You hear what someone says, you say, and you rephrase back to them, you paraphrase, you parrot-phrase, we'll talk about those, so that you know and I know I'm hearing and understanding, listening and understanding what you're saying. Paraphrasing sends 3 messages. Says, I'm listening, I'm interested, I care, and I understand you. Or, at least I'm trying to understand you. Okay, because it might be true that what you said, I'm trying, but I didn't get it. Now, this is where we get to that place where we have to be bold enough to say, I'm sorry, but I totally didn't understand what you just said.
So, repeat.
Yeah. So can you say that again? Can you repeat that?
Can you repeat? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so paraphrasing sends 3 messages. If I'm paraphrasing something to you, you've just said something, and I'm going to say, so what I just heard you say was blah, 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 blah. It sends 3 messages to you. It says, 1, I'm listening. How can I paraphrase if I'm not listening? I can't. That's why active listening is such a strong tool. Because if I'm paraphrasing, the only way I can paraphrase is I've shut everything else out and I'm fully engaged listening to you. Okay? It says I care because I listened enough to be able to come back and tell you what it is that mattered. Okay? And then finally I understand you. Well, maybe I don't, but you know what? I'm trying to understand you through the conversation. Okay? So, real quickly, 2 ways of paraphrasing. Acknowledging and clarifying, that's one together, not 2 ways. So we acknowledge or we clarify. So we're paraphrasing the essence of what was said, gaining clarity and testing your understanding. So if I acknowledge, I'm going to say, so what I understand you to say is that it's really important for us to as close as we can get out on time. I'm acknowledging. Clarifying would be, so did I hear you say that it was important that you get out at this particular time? Now, do you hear the difference of how I said it? I said very much the same thing, but how I asked the question, how I paraphrased it, either said, I hear what you're saying and I'm just double checking with you that I got it right, or I don't know if I heard what you said and this is what I think it was. That's clarifying, okay? Paraphrasing is exactly what it sounds like. I am just going to verbatim repeat back what you said. And sometimes we use that only when someone has said something really simple and basic. My wife comes to me and says, hon, I think it's time we buy a new car. I can't tell some big story with that. If I'm going to paraphrase that statement, it would just be, so you're saying you think we should buy a new car. That's paraphrasing. That's just right to the point. Here's what I heard you say. Okay? Using the person's own words to reflect back the essence of the statement. We died. All right, summarizing and organizing. Let's get these up on the screen. If you can... go back and hold it there. Go back, go back, go back. Nope, you're going the wrong way. There you go. Hold it right there. Okay. Summarizing and organizing, this is for taking larger chunks of what people say and kind of putting it back to them. Have you ever sat with somebody or been in a conversation with someone that 10 minutes later they're still talking and you haven't had a chance to say a word? We've all experienced it. Now, I'm going to tell you, in many cultures, you just don't interrupt somebody. It's inappropriate, especially if they're older than you. You just let them talk. But can I tell you, it's the wrong thing to do. Please don't do it. What you need to do and what you want to do is to have the courage to say to them, hold on, you're losing me. And I know what you're saying is really important. You had me up to this point, and I'm getting lost. So you want to say what I understood was, and I'm going to summarize. You said this and this and this. Is that right? Okay, cool. Please, it's important. And you have to emphasize that, and your body language has to show it. Because if you're like, you just start like talking all over them, then that's something way different than like, whoa, wait a minute, you're losing me. And if you let them know that what they have to say is important, I want to get what you're saying. It matters to me. So here's what I understand so far. Can you tell me more? By the way, if you want to write something down, that's like when you do coaching, training, like I paid tens of thousands of dollars to get my degree at Lipscomb University, graduate studies in life coaching, and probably one of the most important things I got out of it was this one little question. Can you tell me more? I've used it more times in coaching conversations and had people have amazing breakthroughs because it gives them permission to keep going. And you especially use it when you have to stop someone in mid-conversation because they're just going on and on and on and on, and you know you're losing it because we can only stay with that kind of conversation for so long. You with me? Can you tell me more about that? Okay, onward. 3 P's. This is in your book. 3 P's. Pause, paraphrase, probe. Keep rolling. So pause. Pause not only gives you time to clarify and organize your paraphrase, but lets the speaker know that you are really considering what they say. So here's an interesting thing. I had a conversation with my youngest son, my 27-year-old one time, and we were talking about the difference between getting on the phone and talking versus texting. And why, for so many people in his generation, maybe this is generalization, but so many people in his generation prefer texting conversations over talking on the phone. And here's what he said to me, and it gave me some clarity. He said, Dad, if you're talking on the phone, then as soon as someone says something to you, you're expected to respond. If you're texting, you can take time. You can think out what you're going to say, how you want to answer it. There's no pressure that you have to speak. So here's what I said to him. Who created the rule that said that as soon as someone stops, you got to be Johnny on the spot and start talking right away? That's what pause is about. Take a moment and process what they've just said. In coaching, we also use another term that's called let the silence do the heavy lifting. Sometimes the best part of a conversation is what we don't say. Giving a person a chance to process and to think about what it is. So we're going to give time to clarify and think about what we're going to say in our paraphrase, right? And then we're going to respond. Next. Simple to the point, this is talking about paraphrasing, right? Tone of inquiry, leaving the option open that you may not be hearing everything correctly, giving them the opportunity of adjusting the thought or expounding. That's like the example that I gave you, how I said it. Don't ever just assume that you've heard correctly. In fact, you're probably better off to make the assumption that maybe I missed what they said and I'm going to ask for clarity. That's way better to err on that side than it is to be a know-it-all, so to speak. Okay? Next. No, go ahead. We just did that one. One more. Probe. After that, we're going to ask follow-up questions. Can you tell me more? Can you tell me how that felt? What was it like for you to experience that? Be interested. Someone once told me the greatest part of being excellent in conversation is being curious. Being curious. And that's not probing into somebody's life. That's being curious. Well, that's really interesting. I've never heard of that. Could you tell me more about that? I start more conversations when I'm flying and sitting next to people, and I don't ask them, oh, what are you doing? Or what do you do for a living? We'll just start, let it kind of, and then I always say wow, it's really interesting. Can you tell me more about that? You know what I found out? People love, for the most part, to talk about themselves. They do. You just give them an opportunity. You're chomping at the bit to say something. Go ahead.
So I'm summarizing and organizing, and this is just like the last one. I wrote that I want to hear what you're saying. Can you stop and break it down?
Yeah. Now that was that. So that's in the context of someone who's talking, or has given you a bigger chunk than you could paraphrase. You're going to summarize. Okay? Or I recommended to you that if someone's just going on and on, don't just like go blank, because that's what happens to us. Someone's talking, and you glaze over, and you're like, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that. I'm going over my grocery list. Yeah, okay, thanks, that's nice. Okay? No, you want to be able to stop them, because you know what? What they're saying matters. Okay? Next. I would do it, but all right. So let's flip through this real quick. And this is go. Just go through all these. This is in your book, and all these are just possible ways you could start paraphrasing. In other words, from what I hear you say is that, or I'm hearing many things, but I want to clarify that what you say is this or this or this. Okay? You have those in your book. Just some suggestions. What are the benefits of paraphrasing? Reassures the person that what they said is valid because I'm interested. Makes the person feel listened to and worth listening to. Ensures that the person and coach are on the same track. Well, even in a relationship, if I'm having a conversation. Now listen, I don't do active listening or empathic listening in every conversation that I have with people. That's not what we're talking about. If I'm with my friends and we're talking about some sports thing or cars, or I'm talking with my son, he's like a major techie guy, and I'm not, hey, so what you really mean is this and this. No, it's if we're having a conversation with some level of weight, emotional connection, something that it's important that we understand each other, that's when we're going to invoke these things that we're talking about. All right? Next. Enables the person to move forward. Well, that's because if they know they're understood, it's going to help them to move forward, help them process, help them explore what they're talking about more in depth. Builds rapport and trust with the person. Why does it build rapport and trust? Well, if somebody knows that you care enough to really listen, and they see it because you're paraphrasing, you're active in your listening, they're going to trust you more. Supports the person to continue speaking, expressing themselves more fully and clearly. Did you hear what I had to say? But did you listen? Okay, thoughts, comments?